So Alisha, welcome to the Rework Women in AI podcast. It's fantastic to have you join us today. So I just wanted to really kick off by asking you if you could first just introduce yourself, and also if you could just share a bit more about what attracted you to the AI sector in the first place.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. And yes, for sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Alisha, and I'm a 14-year-old innovator and change maker. I'm really passionate about how we can use artificial intelligence to positively impact our mental health. I worked on a couple projects like diagnosing mental health disorders like ADHD and schizophrenia. And I've also worked on preventing suicide, which is another project I've worked on. I was really attracted to AI when I first joined the Knowledge Society, which is a program for human accelerators. And I was really exposed to a lot of exponential technologies like, quantum computing, artificial intelligence, blockchain. And AI really intrigued me on how we can leverage AI to solve some of the world's biggest problems, which is why I knew that I really wanted to work with AI. That's kind of how my journey started. I'm also currently researching at MIT at an AI lab to actually diagnose more mental health disorders. So that's kind of what I'm working on, and I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. Well, we're so inspired to hear about the work that you've done already, which is fantastic to hear. So as a teenager yourself, why does mental health matter to you?
I think, as a teenager, growing up with a lot of people, a lot of my classmates, a lot of people in my life have struggled with mental health, which is why it has been something really important to me. And I know that whenever I used to watch the news and look at stories about people suiciding, it always, always really broke my heart because I was like, why is this that the reality that we live in? So that's kind of why I knew that, I had to do something about it. I feel like, and youth are the leaders, the future leaders of tomorrow. And I think that if we don't help them, then who will? How will they be the future leaders if we can't give them access to resources, and then we can't even give accurate diagnosis to mental health disorders? So it is kind of why, my passion for mental health came, and why I wanted to be an advocate and actually, do something about it.
And why do you think that machine learning is the solution?
So I know that machine learning is a technology that everyone is aware of, and I think that one really important part about machine learning is that it's really accessible and easy to replicate with around like all companies, all organizations, that they can use machine learning. And I think that's the best part about it, because having such an accessible technology, it can be really easy to use. But also, I think technology right now, we already use our phones. Right now, we're on social media all the time. And I think that technology is a solution. Instead of, always complaining about technology being the problem, about, us using social media, so that's why our mental health increases. Why don't we turn that into something positive? And why don't we actually turn that into a solution? And which is why I think that machine learning can go to so many areas. For example, like the project I just worked on was I classified tweets as if they were suicidal and if they were not suicidal. And what that did was that it looked at suicidal ideation in tweets, and it could detect if someone was about to suicide. And that really helps because there's already so many people who use social media. And now, if we can actually turn that into something positive, and we can actually understand this is what's going on, but prevent suicide, like that can make such a positive impact. And I think that, suicide is just one of them. But what about high risk people, or even, people who are severely have severe depression, or even any other mental health disorders, which is why I think machine learning is definitely the way to go.
And how did you get involved with machine learning yourself?
So as I mentioned, I am part of the Knowledge Society, which is which is an innovate program to, expose youth to technologies like AI, for example. And I got really intrigued into AI. And obviously, for a 14-year-old, it's not the easiest thing to do. But I think that for me, I really had that passion to really want to, diagnose mental health disorders, and also, make an impact with AI. So I think that I really just followed my curiosity and, talked to industry leaders and really worked my way and had that persistence to keep on going, even when, machine learning, it did get difficult for me. And I think that it's definitely an interesting topic, but I feel like if you have that passion and the persistence to keep on going, that's kind of what drew me to actually, be where I am today.
And why do you think other young people should get involved with AI just now?
So AI, it is such an amazing technology to explore. I think that it's not only our future, but it's definitely being implemented today. And I think that what's important in that is that, so many youth, if we can already start, like we're already right now diagnosing mental health disorders, but what in the future, in the next 10 years, we're going to be working on, curing cancer with AI, even though those are projects that are also being done today. But if you can just think about what we're doing today and how much it will grow in the next 10 years, I think that youth need to be on board with AI so that we can solve the biggest problems in the world, being poverty or climate change. I think AI really is the solution.
And thinking more about perhaps teenagers now looking at their potential career paths that they could go down, do you think that governments and educational institutions are providing enough information just now about AI as a potential area for work?
I think with the education system and the government institutions, I think that we're definitely exposed to relative topics like math, for example, and learning the basic skills to actually work on projects like AI. However, I do think that we are not really exposed to things like AI as a workplace, or even blockchain or quantum computing. I think that for us, we can really, for youth, it can be really that our success can be determined by other people in our lives. Like, you have to be a lawyer or you have to be a doctor. But I think that when I think that if we can be exposed to topics like AI, then I think that the next generation will be filled to do so much more meaningful things in the future. So I definitely don't think that definitely think that we can improve on our education system, on adding more diversity in sort of topics like AI and blockchain, and teaching youth about that as a potential workplace in the future. That's why I think that that's really important as well.
And what advice would you give to somebody that's in a similar position to you, another kind of fellow young person that wants to start getting into AI?
And the best advice that I've gotten was just start. And it might seem easier said than done, but I think just starting, you can't really get motivation from an external force. I think that you can't really be like, okay, I want to do this, but you never really get it done. I think that just starting is really, really important, because when you start, then I think the motivation follows after. And it is easier said than done, as I mentioned. But I think that when you really just start and you really follow your curiosity and have that passion, have that persistence to keep on going, even when it gets rough, because it does, it's difficult. But I think that when you have that passion to keep on going, you will get through it, and you will actually, you will follow and you will work on meaningful things. And I think that there's so many resources online as well, and really leveraging that. I think that for me, I did a lot of courses. I talked to a lot of industry leaders, and that has really helped me to actually get a better understanding. And I think that's the world is full of possibilities. And just knowing that, I think that that itself is so powerful, because I think that one thing I've always known is that in order to achieve unconventional success, you have to take an unconventional path. And I think that I truly believe that that is the truth. And I think that just starting, you can go to amazing places.
And as a young person, what do you think is the potential for AI in the future? I know it's a big question, but what do you see the path going down for AI in general?
I think, already right now we're working on such amazing things, like, whether that be, curing cancer, or even like diagnosing mental health disorders. We're already on such a great path. And I think the future is like full of possibilities. I think that, in the next 10, 20, 30 years, problems like poverty, problems like climate change, I think AI can really be the solution. And I think the only thing with that is that we need more smart people working on these problems. It's like the solution, the possibilities are there, but unless we don't have youth leaders, unless we don't have people working on this, we won't be able to get there. And I think the possibilities, there's so many. I think that AI will be the next big thing, which it already is. But I think that we can solve such amazing things, and we can really eliminate the biggest problems in the world. But we really just need more smart people working on these problems to actually make that happen.
Thank you for such a positive answer. And thinking about perhaps some of the obstacles that we might still face, how do you overcome challenges when building ML models?
hmm I think that, it can be really difficult. And I feel like sometimes you're not motivated at all to get through them. You're like, I can't do this. And it happens. But I think that one thing I've always been taught is just figure it out. I know it seems really straightforward and blunt, but it's like figuring it out is really important because sometimes we think that there's always going to be someone to tell it for us. I think that's really a school mindset that many students have developed, like having our teacher always tell us what to do. But the figure it out mindset, I think it's really important because there's so many resources online. I can't say that enough because there are, and I feel like we don't know it. Like you can watch YouTube videos and you can learn so much in just 1 hour. And I think that that is so important. Figuring out is like the best advice I can give because when you figure it out, I think that, and also when you figure it out, I feel like you just feel so much better about it because you feel more accomplished that you actually did that. And I think that it's so easy to ask other people to do it. It's so easy to get other people or other things to come in your life, but when you start taking control of that, I think that that is really what success looks like.
And you've touched on so many areas where AI can have a potential force for good, but I just wanted to go back to kind of what you started at the beginning discussing, and that was why should more people get involved in working in AI and mental health?
So, I mean, mental health is such an important problem, and I think that in the next few years, right now, there's a COVID crisis, but I think in the next few years there will be a mental health crisis. There are too many youth that are suffering through mental illness, and that's for so many reasons. Like whether that be with their family issues or with their childhood trauma, or whether that be with the social environment, social media itself. And there's so many reasons. I think that we need more people. We need more people, working on, solving and actually giving better diagnosis to mental health disorders. Right now, it's really just like how people get diagnosed for mental health disorders is really just walk in a room and it's like someone tells them, okay, you have this disorder, but there's actually no accurate way to test that. And actually, 1.1 million youth are actually misdiagnosed of ADHD, which is a huge mental health disorder. And that's a crazy amount. We need more people working on this because if we want to see the future leaders of tomorrow work on incredible things, then we got to help them now and we got to give them the resources so that they can actually achieve unconventional success.
And I'm sure that anybody listening to this, especially young people, will be so inspired by some of the things that you've shared today, and your really passion for AI really comes through. So I just wanted to ask if there's anybody that has really inspired you in your progress within the AI space so far.
hmm Well, I think there are many people that have really inspired me, in AI especially. I think that definitely I think the people who most inspire me are the youth. And I think that I could really list off so many amazing AI leaders, but I think that the youth really inspire me because it shows me that the possibilities of the world are unconventional. In my program of the Knowledge Society, there are so many amazing youth working on doing amazing things with AI. And it really has inspired me to actually want to do more and actually want to make an amazing impact on the world. I think that I could so go off and list off, all the people that I see on LinkedIn are amazing AI leaders, but I think that the most influential people in my life have been the youth working on amazing problems because it shows that there is no age to working on amazing things. There's no age limit. I think that whether that be you're 10 years old, whether that be you're 30 years old, I think everyone has access to making a meaningful impact, and that's kind of what really inspires me and what drives me to keep on going every single day.
Well, thank you so much, Alisha, for taking the time to have a chat with us today. So this is the first podcast edition of 2021, so I think it's a great way to start on such a positive note. And I'll definitely be sure to keep an eye on your work in the future, and we'll also post some more information about where people can get in touch with you if they'd like to in the podcast notes on our podcast page and below here on the video edition. So thank you again. Thanks so much.